to order. I will now begin roll call. Please say present when your name is called. Rebecca Carabez, Marco Durazo, Michael Fisher,
Present.
Alexis Lewis, William McClurk,
Present.
Shirley Melnikov,
Present.
Kalima Salahuddin, Robert Solano,
Present.
James Simmons.
Present.
Thank you. We will now move on to item number 2, general public comments. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the Independent Civilian Advisory Commission on a topic within the jurisdiction of the Commission, but that is not on the agenda. Public comments on matters on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. Please fill out a speaker slip. The Commission may not discuss or take action on items not on the agenda. Please note we did receive 2 written comments received prior to the meeting. They were shared with the Commissioners and posted to the Independent Civilian Advisory Commission website at smcgov.org/ICAC. It is now time for general public comment. Please bring a speaker slip up to the clerk during this time. For those joining the meeting online, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Each person will be granted 2 minutes to speak. We will now move on to public comment in the Regional Operations Room and then proceed to comments on Zoom. We have a few speaker slips submitted. When I call your name, you may come up to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak. I'd like to call Lauren McCombs to the podium, followed by Nancy Goodman.
Hello, my name is Deacon Lauren McCombs, and currently I serve at Christ Episcopal Church in Portola Valley. I am a member of Faith in Action Bay Area and a member of Coalition for a Safer San Mateo County. I come before you tonight to ask Sheriff Corpus to allow inmates to receive mail from their loved ones. I am asking our elected sheriff to open her heart to understand how important it is for the mental well-being of our inmates to receive a piece of mail from a loved one that says, "I'm thinking of you and I love you," such as the mail that I received from my granddaughter Eloise. That's the kind of mail that people love to get. Many inmates feel completely isolated from their families, and that simple act of reading and physically touching a letter could lift up their downtrodden spirits immensely. Since our last meeting, I have done some research to understand how counties in California have dealt with this issue. Santa Clara County has non-badge staff running their jail mailroom. The staff opens the mail with gloves on. If they come across anything that looks suspicious, they send the mail in question to badge deputies who further examine the mail. Santa Clara County doesn't use a scanner like we do that produces blurry images of received mail. It seems to me that Sheriff Corpus doesn't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to allowing our inmates to receive mail. Why not reach out to Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department and find out how they have made that work? I would so appreciate it if Sheriff Corpus exercised her authority as an elected official to change this policy of not allowing our inmates to receive mail from their loved ones. I encourage her to open her heart with compassion and understanding to make this needed policy change. Let us together reestablish trust between the Sheriff's Department and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Goodman, followed by Hi, thank you. I'm Nancy Goodman. I live in Redwood City and I'm with Fix in San Mateo County. Thank you for listening to the community, to the staff, and moving public comment to the beginning and increasing it to 2 minutes. I have 3 quick comments.
First, as Lauren said, I wanted to confirm what she said. We should allow the incarcerated people in San Mateo County to get personal email from their loved ones. LA does, San Francisco does, as she said, Santa Clara does. We don't. It's now a lawsuit, which costs me taxpayer money because we are defending a policy that really is against human rights. Following the last ICAC meeting, the sheriff did tell one of us that they're working on setting up a mailroom, hiring mailroom staff, and procuring technology that would allow incarcerated people to get mail. We would love to have ICAC follow up on that and have that happen. Second, as Jim Lawrence pointed out last month, the community needs a confidential place to make complaints that's independent of the sheriff's office. People now bring their complaints to Fix in San Mateo County. We ask them to contact the sheriff, but they don't necessarily want to. That's why they asked us. We need an independent complaint process in this county. And third, finally, taxpayers have paid out more than $13.4 million in the past 2 years due to sheriff misconduct. Most recently, an $8 million settlement for a member of the SWAT team due to sexual harassment and assault by her superior and others higher up ignoring it. The next highest payout was for the family of Chenadu Kobe. I hope ICAC can look at how to prevent future incidents to reduce these risks and liabilities for taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call David to the podium.
My name is David Allard, and I've been interested in law enforcement for quite some time. A long time ago, I was on the county grand jury. And I'd like to talk about the word transparency. Our sheriff uses it all the time. Her command staff uses the word transparency all the time. But without definition, what does it mean? I would suggest it's virtually nothing. I would define, without having definition, I'll offer my own. I would define transparency as disclosing things you don't want to talk about. Because if you're disclosing things you want to talk about, that's not transparency, that's public relations. We have a lot of public relations here. This translates to an area in the jail. The deaths in the jail, and it's the last until the time is left, I can't tell. No, there's no visible things to me, so I just have to. There it is, thank you, appreciate it. The deaths in the jail have not ever been fully investigated. Yes, I know staff has told me that there have been investigations made, but the investigations have been made by other department heads who hold their highest allegiance to department heads and not to the public. It's only going to be investigated when there is an independent investigation. You are the independent commission. I urge you to assert that independence and insist upon independent investigations of the deaths in the jail. It's the only way you'll ever find out what really happened.
Thank you. We do not have any more public comments in the room. We will now move on to Zoom comments. When I call your name, I will unmute your mic and you will be granted 2 minutes to speak. Let's begin. Pat, you will have 2 minutes.
I'm on Zoom and I can't hear anything. Can someone please fix the problem? There's no audio on Zoom.
Okay, we are working on it. Thank you. Pat, are you able to hear? Pat, can you confirm if you can hear us?
This is the first moment I can hear anything since the meeting started.
Thank you. Do you have a public comment?
No, just it's not okay to have a public meeting and have no one on Zoom hear anything.
We do apologize for that technical issue, but thank
So
you
can
for
I hear what happened before now? Is there a recording of what happened before now?
Yes, ma'am, there is. There's a recording that will be on the county website on YouTube once the meeting's completed, or you can visit the YouTube recording now and rewind if you prefer.
No, I want to wait till the end so I don't miss anything else.
That's perfectly fine. The entire recording will be available once the meeting completes.
Okay, can someone just summarize what's happened so far? Because I haven't heard a thing.
We had a couple of public comments. I don't feel like I can summarize them here currently, but this will be available for you to be able to review after the fact.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to continue with public comments on Zoom. Can we have Alan Melnico? You have 2 minutes to speak.
There was no sound. There still is no sound.
Sir, are you able to hear this now? Okay, hold 1 second while we try to resolve the technical difficulty. I'd suggest proceeding to the next person and seeing if it's working for them.
There's no more Zoom comments. Deborah?
Can I just interject one thing? Just as a point of order, there are two people that came in before the public comment started. Rebecca Carabez and Commissioner Durazo did show up before. They came in after the roll call, but before the public comment to make sure the record's clear.
Yes, thank you.
Can I go? Can I present?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. My name is Deborah Leshin. I live in Belmont, California. I live in Belmont, and I'm a member of Belmont Neighbors Against Racism, as well as the Unitarian Universalists of San Mateo. I just want to talk about a couple of things. I realize that the county has paid out more than $34.4 million due to sheriff office misconduct in the last 2 years. And I think we need to take a harder look at sheriff policies and procedures and do a specific analysis about why taxpayers are having to make these large payouts and to prevent future incidents. Additionally, I think there should be a confidential way for community members to make complaints regarding the sheriff's department. I'm also concerned that there's been 5 deaths in McGuire Jail since 2023. 2 were suicides, 2 drug overdoses, and we need to find a way to prevent those kinds of deaths. We are not, jail is not a mental hospital. It's not a drug detox. And there needs to be a different approach to prevent these completely preventable deaths. And also, I know last time we brought up that people in the jail are not allowed to have a personal mail or drawings from their own children, and that they renewed this contract with, some iPad situation from Florida, and it just isn't okay. It just doesn't respect human rights. It doesn't have compassion for human beings in this difficult situation. And I know they are talking about doing something about it, and I would really urge something to be done about that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for public comment on Zoom. Okay. There are no more comments on Zoom. We will now move on to item number 3. Moving on to item number 3, beginning with overview of boards and commissions. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Connie Horace-Durrell. I am the county's Chief Legislative Officer, and I've been asked to come in today to talk to you and provide you with a general overview of our boards and commissions, county boards and commissions. And so I would like to start by saying that I'm providing you with context of generally all of our boards and commissions, and I'm mainly taking the information from the handbook, that the county's boards and commissions handbook, which you were provided with a copy of, I believe, at your first meeting. And of course, it's posted on the county's boards and commissions website. And so I'll be referring to it quite a bit. So the first thing that I would like to review with you is just the general purpose of and role of boards and commissions. And it really is to provide an important perspective to county government and further the public interest. Boards and commissions are put together to gather and analyze public input and make recommendations to the boards of supervisors. Most, I would say that the majority are advisory. However, there are a few that do provide legal or legally required advice and make decisions. But that is a very small group of commissions, boards and commissions that fall into that category. And I will show you a list of those in a bit. So generally, boards and commissions do not make policy decisions, manage or direct programs, commit county resources, or take official positions that have not already been approved by the Board of Supervisors. So I think the important thing here to note is that the Board of Supervisors, the elected Board of Supervisors, is the main policy-making body for the county. Next slide, please. So what are the requirements for service? It's very simple. It's to living in the county is really the sole requirement for service on most boards and commissions. Now, some commissions, boards and commissions do have other requirements that are listed in the information that's posted on our vacancies website, vacancies webpage on the county's boards and commissions website. But many of them do not. And so county employees are permitted to serve, provided that they don't have a conflict of interest. But some, like this one, don't allow for county employees to serve. So it really depends on the specific body. Next slide, please. Okay. So again, what are the types of boards and commissions that the county has? So as I said, the majority are advisory, and then there are a few that are decision-making. If you could move on to the next slide, please. So how is that determined? Well, state law will tell you what type of body it should be. So some of these bodies are required by state law, and the state law will indicate that. Some are created by county charter. Again, they will indicate what type of body it is going to be, and some by board action, such as this one. So I would recommend that if you're interested in learning more about the types of bodies that we have and get more details on boards and commissions, I've listed a number of resources that are posted on the county's website. And the first thing that I would direct you to is the formational documents that you received regarding the development or the establishment of the ICAC. That outlines in great detail the purpose of the body and how it's supposed to function. And of course, the board has also established standing rules for all boards and commissions, which can also be found on the county's website. And of course, the handbook that I had already mentioned. And then
of course, your staff liaison, and I will talk about the role of staff liaisons in a minute, is also a wealth of information. So all of those resources are available to you for further review. If you could move on. Thank you. So here's a list of our county boards and commissions, committees, and council. County has about 40 or so bodies that advise the board on a number of different areas. And as you can see, the majority of them are advisory, but there are a few decision-making ones, and those are listed here on the slide. And they each have, as I say, clear language on their mission and the authority that they have. If you could move on. Thank you. Okay, so what is the role generally of commissioners on all these bodies? Well, it's to attend and prepare for regular meetings, learn about the functions of the body that you serve on. You serve on ad hoc committees or subcommittees. All commissioners are asked to familiarize themselves with, compliance and regulatory statutes, maintain high ethical standards, respect the voice and spirit of the body that you serve on, be an active member, and advance the goals of the body, and bring an equity lens to the work that you're doing. And I have to say that, the equity aspect is one that we have worked on quite a bit in advancing throughout all of our bodies, and it is something that that we continue to strive for. Next slide, please. So there is a role for alternates in some of the bodies. Not every body has a role for an alternate. This particular one does. So what you see on the slide is the specific language that have been included in the founding resolution for the ICAC. So there are 2 alternates which serve in the absence of a regular voting member. Now, I don't want to get too much into this because it's already on the slide, but what I will say is that it is important that if you're a regular member, that you let the staff know if you can't make a meeting. So it's important to notify the staff if you're going to be absent, because that's really when the alternate role kicks in. And it's important that those alternates know that they're going to be called into action. So, because then it is a little awkward if you come in late or you show up an hour later and, that alternate has to go back and sit in the audience. It's a little strange. So anyway, I would just say that you all should work very closely with the staff liaisons to let them know if you're going to be late or will have to miss a meeting, so that the alternate can step into that role. And as I say, there is no single approach to the use of alternates. So you will have to figure this out with your staff liaison on how, who will step in and when. But these are, like I say, agreements that you will want to make early on in the process. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the role of liaisons, because they are key to the function and success of all of our boards and commissions. So I have to point out that your liaisons are really the Board of Supervisors, the 2 board members that have taken it upon themselves to liaise with this group. And in this particular case, we have President Warren Slocum, President of Board of Supervisors, and Supervisor Dave Pine. They are your liaisons to the rest of the Board of Supervisors. Next slide. However, there is a very fundamental role for staff. Obviously, the supervisors aren't always going to be at these meetings, but there are staff here representing them, and staff from the county executive's office and the county council's office here as well. So what is the role of staff to support the work of the ICAC and any board and commission? So they work. So the role of staff is to work
So they typically come from departments that staff and house the specific board and commission. And all of our boards and commissions are staffed by departments throughout the county, depending on the area. So staff and board liaisons help to coordinate commission activities. So they provide administrative support. So in this case, the Office of Community Affairs in the County Executive's Office has been tasked with supporting the ICAC. So I'm sure you all know Emma and her team. They're here to provide that administrative support that's needed. They share subject matter expertise, and they also help to liaise with other county staff that you may need to speak with, as well as potentially other departments. They help to welcome and train you, and they update the website. And when it comes time to find replacements for you, when you cycle off, or often commissioners, for personal reasons, need to step aside, they help to spearhead recruitments. So they play a variety of roles. Now, in addition to the staff liaisons, we have the board liaisons. And the board liaisons are the staff that work for the Board of Supervisors. And they have a very particular and unique role as well in this process. So they work for the board members. And so I'm sure you're familiar with the team over there, represented by Marcy Dragan, Linda Wolin, and Randy Torrijos. So they ensure that communication is open between the ICAC and their bosses, the two board liaisons, the supervisors. And you should also know that the board divides up many of the commissions and boards, advisory boards and commissions that the county has amongst themselves. And so they assign themselves to these bodies to communicate with them. And those assignments are listed on the boards and commissions website. So you can see which supervisors liaise with which bodies. Board liaisons also help with the application process. So when a opening comes up and people apply, they help the supervisor with processing or reviewing applications, setting up interviews. So many of you probably already know them well because of that process. So they really are a key conduit between all of you and the board. So if you can move on to the next one. So communicating with the board of supervisors. So I want to talk a little bit about this because as you know from the, if you had a chance to read the foundational, your foundational documents, it indicates that, you have a work plan. Most boards and commissions are required to produce an annual work plan and bring that to the Board of Supervisors with recommendations. And so that is an opportunity for you to speak directly to the board. And those presentations are scheduled with the help of your staff liaisons. So we try to schedule those throughout the year for various groups. Some groups have already kind of staked the months of which they present. But, we would be, or Emma and her team would be working with all of you to decide when the right time will be for the ICAC to present their work plan or whatever it is that you all decide that you are going to produce in order to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. So that's one way to communicate. And then, of course, the most obvious way and common way is to work through your board and staff liaisons. So that's what they're here for. They're here to support you and to
bring back your questions and concerns directly to the Board of Supervisors. As I say, I don't know how often the board members will be coming to these meetings, but that's what the staff is here for, is to keep those lines of communications open. If you can, all right. So again, here is a general framework on how to develop an agenda. And this is a general framework that applies to all boards and commissions. So typically the chairperson will work with staff to coordinate the agenda items. And I don't think you've selected a chair yet. So when the time comes, keep in mind that that is a main function, responsibility of the chair, is to work with the staff to put together the agendas. And the agendas do take time to put together, so it's a very important role in addition to the sort of administrative function of the meeting and that kind of thing. So it really, like I say, most groups kind of develop their own way of putting together the agenda. But the important thing to remember is that any commissioner, board member can propose an item for inclusion in the agenda. So that's something that you all can think about. As well as many of our bodies actually, at the end of the meeting, will often suggest items to put on the next agenda. So that is something, too, that happens quite a bit in some of our other groups as well. So, again, you will have to work very closely with Emma and her team to figure out the best process for you. All right. And then I just want to close really by talking about legislation and lobbying, because I get a lot of questions about that. Again, just a reminder that the Board of Supervisors is the policy-making body for the county. And so, but I know that often some of our boards and commissions are very interested in state and federal legislation and want to know if you can take a position on a bill. The answer is no, not as the ICAC. What you can do is bring an issue forward through the staff to the Board of Supervisors if we don't already have policy. So the Board of Supervisors on an annual basis approves a legislative program. That program is available on the county's website. It lists all of the different areas that the board has taken formal positions on. It is developed on an annual basis with staff and departments and groups like yourselves. And so I suggest that you take a look at that if you haven't already. And so really, if we have policy already in place, then a request can be made for the Board of Supervisors to potentially take a position on a measure. But if there is no policy that has already been approved by the board, then there is a formal process that needs to be followed through my unit, the Intergovernmental and Public Affairs Unit, to bring the item to the board. So again, if there's interest in something like that, I suggest that you work with the staff who will contact me and I can provide more details. But of course, as individual residents, citizens, you can state your position on anything as individuals. All right. So, and then I do, my unit has produced this handy one-pager that I will make sure is shared with you along with the legislative program if you haven't seen that. And it outlines this process because, again, we just want to make sure that you're aware of the steps that need to be taken in order for you to bring something to the board related to legislation. So with that, I'm happy to take any of your questions if you have any.
I have a question for you, Connie, and that is, are we allowed to make suggestions or recommendations to the sheriff?
Are you allowed to make recommendations to the sheriff? I'm going to look to Adams in the response to this.
I'll go over this a little bit
Okay.
about the body.
Yeah,
Make recommendations.
we're tag team.
The answer will be that ultimately that you can make recommendations to the board of supervisors, and I think through that process, the sheriff will be made aware of certain recommendations that you have, and then it would be officially the board who decide whether to take a position on that or not. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Since you got a brief overview of how all the boards and commissions work, we're just going to do a really quick run through on this specific board and commission. I'm sure since you chose to apply to it and are sitting on it, you have a sense of what its job is, but we're just going to run through it really quickly. And some of these questions, like you pose, may be an opportunity to pose and get answered. Next slide, please. So the structure of the commission, 7 voting members that you've all been introduced to, 2 alternates. I'll pause there and say that the way the alternates work for this particular board is the alternates are full participants in the discussion. They are non-voting members unless a voting member is absent. If the voting member is absent, the alternate stepped in to vote for them. And that could actually be for just a particular issue. So if somebody's here at the beginning of the meeting as a non-alternate and they depart, the alternate can step right in and vote for that. So helps to stay fully engaged when you're an alternate, even if you don't think you might have to vote on something. So for example, today we have Kalima, Commissioner, is not here. So Commissioner Carabez would step into her shoes and be a full voting commissioner. If we have a situation where we have one voting commissioner gone, and we have to decide between the 2 alternates who's going to take the seat, you all will be able to decide that process, but we'll propose you alternate. So whoever did it last time, the person to do it. We also have multiple liaisons. You were introduced to them, including our great and committed board liaison, our tremendously talented OCA staff who's here to help guide this process. You have a youth commissioner who is currently not appointed. They're just going through their training for the new crop of youth commissioners, and one of them will be elected to be the liaison of the youth commission to this board. They'll have an opportunity at each meeting to chime in and provide a report, but they won't be sitting as full voting members of the board. We also have the CARE group, which stands for Community Advisors for Responsible Engagement, which is a program that the sheriff set up in 3 geographic areas in the county to receive feedback from members of the public, to have discussions about law enforcement issues. We have a representative from each of those CARE groups here. They are similar to the youth commissioners in that they're non-voting members, but folks who have an opportunity to not only hear the work that you're doing so it can inform their group, but also report out on things that they learn at their meeting. The structure of the purpose of this commission, as stated in our resolution, adopted by the board, is to advise the board in its effort to facilitate public transparency, accountability, and public engagement. Next slide, please. So these are the powers and duties that are enumerated in the resolution. Advise and make recommendations to the boards at least annually. So you'll select someone, presumably the chair, to make an annual presentation to the board members on the work that you've done. That work will be fashioned from a work plan that you develop. These are the first steps in sort of moving towards developing a work plan. We'll have that process facilitated by OCA and Ms. Schechter. You provide a public forum for input regarding the sheriff's office. Of course, board meetings are a public forum for that topic, but a lot of things are happening at the Board of Supervisors meetings, and this gives an opportunity for folks who are particularly interested in the sheriff's office to have a concentrated discussion on those topics, and that's one of your roles, is to hear from the public. The resolution identifies that you will also engage in other duties the board directs, which again include obtaining and conveying community feedback to the board and making recommendations where appropriate, providing a forum for community input on priorities and a means of giving input to the sheriff's office, requesting information from the sheriff's office on community concerns regarding operations, practices, and activities. So you can ask questions, you can gather information from the sheriff's office, you can share concerns that you're hearing. The sheriff will likely have somebody here, so they'll be hearing those concerns as well as they develop. You'll also be able to share positive things that you hear. And then the resolution also called out that before recommendations are made to the Board of Supervisors to adopt a particular policy or to pursue a particular issue, that those recommendations will be with the input of the county executive's office, the county attorney's office, the budget office, and departments who might be affected, so that you have an opportunity to make a recommendation that is fully informed by all the folks who will be impacted by it and might have information of value to share on it. You don't necessarily have to agree with any of the input that you get from us, but at least this requires you to listen to it. Next slide. So the recommendation also called out, and this was in part to be fair with and clear on expectations of what this advisory body will do and will not do. As all advisory bodies and commissions, they don't manage, operate, or direct county departments. Those county departments have their own independent authority, either through the county executive's office or through elected positions. The resolution indicates that you cannot interfere with investigative or prosecutorial function of the sheriff's office, and that's a constitutional prohibition, and that's just embedded in here to answer the question sort of in advance, or matters that are under an active investigation. As you'll hear later as we go through the orientation, there are many layers of investigations that can occur into incidents involving the sheriff's office, and this was put in there to ensure that there's no actions that would be taken or no expectations that actions could be taken to investigate those matters while other authorities are investigating them. This body can't participate or advise on departmental personnel or disciplinary matters. That's the same for all the advisory bodies and commission, with the exception, I guess, of the Civil Service Commission, or issue subpoenas or review confidential material. The ability to issue subpoenas remains with the Board of Supervisors, who, always have the ability to do that pursuant to their process. So that's some of the limitations on the body. Go ahead. I guess I'll pause there because this is kind of a meaty area. I have questions. I have a couple other topics I'm going to cover, but I'll pause there to see if there's questions from the commissioners. And I might punt some of those questions to our attorney. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if the commission is able to do some kind of survey on collect data in some way. Is that one of the ways that they could have?
I don't, at the risk of, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be possible. Yeah. that may be something that the commission could do on its own, or also could recommend to the Board of Supervisors to the extent that it requires resources in order to enable survey. Okay, thank you. All right, there's a number of avenues by which the commissioners and the commission as a whole can receive feedback. There's in-person public comment, which you as the commission will establish the parameters for. We had the first meeting at 1 minute, per public commenter. We weren't sure if 100 people were going to show up, so we erred on the side of being a little shorter. It's 2 minutes as of today. If you guys want to make it 3 minutes in the future, you can do that. That's at the board's discretion, at the commission's discretion. We also have a dedicated email address for folks to provide feedback, and that's listed up there. And then at the request of the board at the last meeting, we've added the dedicated email address for everybody where you can receive individual communication to commission members. Next slide. We also have a facilitator whom you've met. As I mentioned at the last meeting, she's been part of the successful launch of a number of our commissions. We give birth to a new commission every year or two, and she has been our go-to to launch some of our more important commissions that we've recently had very successfully. So her role is to support us in trying to provide you the underpinnings, the framework, so that you have a common base of knowledge from which to determine what you want to look at with regards to the sheriff's office. And the hope is that we'll be successful, organized, and collaborative in that. The further hope is that through working with the facilitator and through your efforts, that we establish a culture for this particular commission that is one of collaboration, productivity, and an organized effort to get at the more important issues, the issues that you define as the most important. That's kind of a unique opportunity. I mean, it is a unique opportunity when we have a new commission for the first commissioners to establish the culture for how this commission will exist in the county. And then our facilitator will also support in the development of the initial work plan. And that's the area that we'll talk about in the next slides. If you guys have any questions.
Yeah, I just have one question in regards to some of the things that we'll see in the media, and whether there's pending litigation, whether there's outside investigative authority from other agencies. Will counsel help steer us away from that if that's something that's coming in and there's inquiries about that, or the inquiries won't raise to the level of interference as laid out in the resolution?
Yeah, that's my job. So you won't have to wait. I will let you know, and I will be presenting, and it's a presentation that I did to the board. I will be presenting on sort of framework that exists and all of the different entities that are investigating and what they investigate at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to public comment. Members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 3, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or bring a speaker slip up to the clerk during this time. You will be granted 2 minutes to speak. We do not have any public comments from the room, but we do have one hand raised on Zoom. Caller ending in 562. Please unmute, or please begin when you're ready. Caller 562.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Thank you very much for all the volunteers who are in this process. I'm a resident of San Mateo County for over 30 years. It has not worked in the past, and I hope that we can see some improvements. I have addressed this directly to the Board of Supervisors 10 years ago. The professional who was retaliated for disclosing abusive, fraudulent, illegal, and criminal conduct in education and in healthcare. And yet, we proposed everything, we submitted everything to law enforcement from Santa Clara to San Mateo County, and nothing was done. The new sheriff was our sheriff in Central Valley. And it is important that you look at the contract that they have. I have the contract, and the sheriff did not abide by the contract. But there's a whole network of government officials and government employees who will defer responsibility. And what I experienced more than 15 years ago is now more complex. So they gave you this presentation of what you can do and what you cannot do. I think it's more complex than what it was before. But I thank you for your service, and I hope I will continue to participate in this discussion. And I hope they finally discovered that the process that was in place was not working, and adding more government departments has not been working either. So we need a better solution to this, and I hope you will find that solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to remind folks that the public comment should be related to the agenda item that we're on. Thank you for your comment. In the future, if you want to make a general comment that's not related to a specific agenda item, you can do that during the general public comment period, which was at the beginning of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have two more hands raised. Elsa Chaper, followed by Eric Sapp. Elsa, you may begin when you're ready.
Oh, good. Thanks for unmuting me. Elsa Schaefer, I live in Menlo Park. And thank you. This has been so interesting. Two questions. One is, will the ICAC have a budget from which to do things like a survey if they would like to do that? And the second thing is, just hearing of all the layers of communication from once the ICAC receives input from the community, then formulates it into a suggestion or a recommendation or something. Then it goes, it sounded to the liaisons, not necessarily directly to the board. But two of the liaisons are on the board. And then there's an iterative process. So I just wonder also how long basic communication will take in order to get, let's say, to the full board, and from the full board to the sheriff, if that's going to be the communication path. I think understanding that for people like me and the public would be very helpful at some point. And I do hope that, although it's an annual work plan that has an annual presentation to the board, the results thereof, I hope that there will be opportunities before that year is up, when needed, to have other presentations to the board as well. Thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you. Eric Sapp, please begin when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Eric Sapp. I'm a staff attorney at Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, also a resident of Redwood City. My comment relates to the presentation of the resolution of the ICAC, and specifically I wanted to underscore a few provisions in Section 5 of that resolution. As the previous presenter noted, the minimum recommendations and advice is once every 12 months, but paragraph A of Section 5 also says that advising and recommending as needed is part of the duties and powers of the commission. And so in principle, there's nothing that prevents the commission from advising and recommending to the board at, any and every Board of Supervisors meeting, other than the requirement to seek input from the county executive, county attorney, Office of Budget, and affected departments, as outlined in paragraph E of Section 5. Now, it's important to note that the resolution's language is seek the input from those departments, not receive the input from those departments. So I think the correct reading of the resolution would be that if those departments are not forthcoming in their input, as long as it's been sought by the commission, then the commission has authority to go forward with advice and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors in such a scenario, again, fulfilling the requirement to provide advice and recommendation to the board as needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last call for public comments. Okay. We will now move on to item number 4, a discussion on commission onboarding process.
It's on already. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I didn't get a chance to meet all of you, but I met most of you at the last meeting. I'm Debbie Schechter. I'm the facilitator working with county staff for the onboarding process and your upcoming retreat. Can you still hear me? Okay. I'm at the podium so I can see you a little better. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the onboarding curriculum that we put together. You heard a little bit about this at the last meeting, but we're going to go into a little more detail. I'll provide you some more information about the goal setting process and the retreat. And then I want to introduce the idea of group agreements. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the onboarding curriculum that was put together by the Office of Community Affairs staff. And the goal of this really is to ensure that you all as commission members have a common understanding of your responsibilities and some of the issues that you may be dealing with before you start your work and before you start setting your goals and priorities. So there's some key goals associated with the onboarding curriculum. You can read them here. The first one is really to build understanding. So really to, some of you know, well, probably all of you know something about the Sheriff's Office operation. Some of you know more about some things than others. And so the idea is really to provide the same base level of understanding for all of you to know the basic things that the Sheriff's Office does to inform your work as commissioners. So other things on here are contextual background. We want to ensure that you have the background information that you need to make decisions, that you have a shared framework with a common language for discussing issues to help enhance your communication, that you understand your roles and how you can contribute as commission members, and that you all can work together effectively and be respected for your experiences and your perspective. So this is kind of the frameworks. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is an outline of the curriculum that will be presented to you over the next several commission meetings. So staff put this together after listening to ideas about the commission, the commission process, hearing from the public over the last, 2 years as the commission was being formed. So there was a lot of concern about specific aspects of Sheriff's Office operations, interest in certain activities. And so they built this curriculum with those things in mind, what they heard from the public and from some of you. I
I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Emma just to briefly go through this, and then I'll make a couple other points about this.
Hi, if you guys are okay, can you all hear me? And I'm going to just speak from the chair. So I've been listening. I'm going to be an active listener here, and you'll see the agenda will be updated to reflect those comments. But what we've put together is a really thought out, providing you what we believe based on public comment would be the fundamental kind of foundational work that would help you when you get to the retreat day to build your work plan, what the priorities are for the ICAC, and then moving forward. Now, this is not your entire agenda item. I want to be very clear. And what you'll see in this, as an example, in this agenda, we've separated and we say what is the onboarding foundational information. So every agenda will have foundational work, which is outlined in here, and then room to also bring in those items that the chair and or this committee or this commission has decided want to learn more, hear more. Now, more discussions may come, and you could ask to have that presented. So this is not inclusive of all of the topics, but really the foundational topics that we believe will be helpful as you move forward. So on July 6th, or 16th, what we had the sheriffs come in and provide an introduction to her executive team, because you will be hearing from them as you learn. So we really wanted to get you to know who they were. So they're friendly faces. So you'll meet them later, perhaps throughout your term while you're here. And then we gave you the kind of Brown Act. And then it started to inform you on those elected positions as you're going to be making those motions today. Connie, thank you, provided an overview of introductions and then, part of the onboarding process. But last week, and as well as in public comments at Board of Supervisors, strong questions about inmate and voter registration. We didn't have a chair, but staff is hearing. So we worked to get that information, and you'll see that reflective on the agenda. So very similar to that process, we hear, we listen, and we will look to try to bring that forth. And as you say, the staff, myself, as well as the liaisons to the board are here, and collectively we are helping, and we will now be working with the chair and the vice chair to build that agenda. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I'll bring your attention to a couple of them. On the 16th, we're going to talk about behavioral health and wellness programs, not specific to the sheriff's office. These are experts, field experts. We're bringing in community. That's the idea, is to bring in outside experts also so you can hear about the crisis response pilot program, but we'll also hear later about what are the programs that the sheriff's doing in regards to those same services. And then the criminal justice system, the private defender diversion program, if you haven't heard already, but they have a fabulous program and they're going to come in and talk about that. The district attorney, the probation department. Again, we believe these are fundamental information that will help inform as you start to build your priorities. Now, what I'd like to do is just take a second or take a few minutes and review it. It's not stuck. I mean, we can always modify, pivot, move it. We could change some things. But are these the right topics for you to help you at the end on the 16th develop your work plan? And I think that that's really what we wanted to do, is present. This is the proposed curriculum. But, again, if we want to hear about other topics, we can bring them in as an agenda item. But if from a foundational work, does this seem like the right topics? Is there something that we should add? Maybe not. Maybe remove. I'd be interested to hear your feedback. And I'll take that feedback now. Yeah.
And I was just going to mention that your feedback, we'll receive that if you have any now. Once you elect a board chair and a vice chair as well, Emma will and staff will work with them too on refining this and going through and seeing if there's anything that's not needed or not of particular interest or anything that that you really do think is foundational that's missing.
And I want to add is that I did look at other curriculums. I did a best practice around the Bay Area and around California and other areas. And I was looking at some of them being one day kind of fundamental and quickly went into. And so we really wanted to make sure that you have as much information ready to build that great work that you're going to be doing and building that curriculum and building, your work plan and your goals for the year. Yes, Cleveland? Okay, yeah. Sorry. I apologize, I was late, but I was listening on the phone. I have nothing more. So thank you for building this out. This was helpful. The other things we're hearing about and what I wanted to learn more about is the receiving mail and letter. Then, like, where does that fit in here? And if not, can we add that? The rationale behind not giving that physical mail. And then I know we're looking at behavioral health and wellness programs, but I think also, we've heard a lot and gotten them on the suicide. So is that going to fit in behavioral health, or are we going to pull that out and have something specific, particularly on that? Because behavioral health is a very broad topic.
I can answer the second part. I think we did intend, and this will be information crafted by others, not me, to include, especially in the correctional health and the jail operations, some information on suicide prevention efforts, the treatment of those who have mental health issues or substance abuse issues in our custodial settings. So I thought it was going to fit in those couple of sections. And then can you remind me of the first? You were asking about the mail. We have to, that's one thing is that for items, we will have to prevail upon the sheriff and see if they have time to, make special presentations on these topics and give them sufficient time. But that's a topic that we can discuss with the sheriff and see if we can squeeze into this agenda as a foundational item, or if not a foundational item, as kind of one of the topics that you're interested in, just generally.
This is Mike Fisher. I would just add, or more of a question actually, from November 6th, it talks about less lethal devices. And I wonder from a foundational perspective, if it would be helpful also to talk about just a general use of force policy for the Sheriff's Department and what that means. And maybe that's going to be incorporated here, but it's a very specific topic, whereas having the foundational topic of the general policy might be helpful.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I think I've seen Rebecca. I got the thing best. Come on, please.
Well, I just want to say thank you for setting up the tools or what we need for the retreat, and that I'm seeing that they are broad areas that hopefully will cover all the things that this commission is going to be doing. Two things that were just brought up today that I'm wondering what the category it's in, and that has to do with independent investigations, that was brought up. So where would that be? And also, just generally the jail deaths, and that's part of the investigation. So just thinking about those being big concerns and which day would we be sort of getting more information on that topic, those topics?
I'll answer. The presentation from our county attorney on, it's listed here as state regulations related to sheriff accountability, and below it is community grievance processes. That's on September 4th in our next meeting. We have a pretty comprehensive presentation that talks about investigations, all sorts of incidents that relate to the sheriff's office, and talks about some of the new criminal justice reform legislation that brings the state into investigating certain things like in custody deaths or uses of force that results in death and things like that. So that section should hopefully give you the grounding as to how complaints are investigated and how some of these more high-profile issues wind their way through an investigatory process.
James, did you have one?
Yep. I see on September 4th, it talks a little bit about recruitment and staffing. And I know we talked a little bit about, and I think the sheriff talked about a little bit, just the issue of being understaffed. Is there any other opportunities to really talk about that and maybe how staff go about doing their job, the supports that they get? Because we know that can affect how operation would go and how relationships can be affected, in this space.
To build on that, I would like to hear more about their training of the sheriff's department staff.
I'd like to know the statistical operations. I know the sheriff's office has contractual systems that they're not doing. And I would be interested in the specific goals, objectives, and standard operating procedures, since each community is different a lot of times, and see if the sheriff's office goals and objectives measure the community needs that they have. So I would not a little bit more specific relative to patrol operations. Thank you.
We've heard some great ideas. I'm going to make a suggestion in the interest of time and the other agenda items that we have, that I think Emma opened the door for to hear that this is a flexible curriculum. If you want to share more ideas, you can do that through your chair, who you'll have it by the end of the meeting, or you can send emails to the ICAC feedback email list, and staff will work and try to compile these ideas and adjust the curriculum as needed.
And thank you for your feedback. And again, full transparency for not only yourselves, but for the public to kind of manage and set those expectations of what could be expected between here and November, that you guys are meeting by week or twice a month. And then come January, you'll start to meet once a month. But that's the work that we have planned between here and November. But again, it's planning with the chair and the vice chair, not the staff is not developing the agenda, but that is working with the commission to develop those agenda items. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to briefly describe the goal setting process that I'm going to be helping you with. And this is pretty straightforward for those of you who have worked on setting goals or developed a work plan. Kind of the first step that I always recommend is just consider the purpose and duties of the commission. So you got a good overview of that earlier this evening. Identify the issues and outcomes that are most important to you as members of the commission and to the community. So again, the onboarding is designed to help you learn more about those issues. As you know, one of your roles is to engage with your community. So one thing you can think about is how you can bring community concerns from your districts into the process, into the goal setting process. Consider what additional data or input would be helpful to you in setting goals. So is there information, statistics? Rebecca talked about a survey. What information do you need that would help you in setting goals? And then work as a commission to set those goals, identify the steps to achieve them, outcomes and metrics, time frames, and responsibilities. And then, as you know, you are responsible for developing an annual work plan. So that's kind of the outcome of the goal setting process that I'll be helping you with. Any questions about that? Okay. So I want to introduce the idea of group agreements
I have used these with some boards and commissions. I know some boards and commissions have developed their own group agreements. And the idea is to set expectations for participation by commission members and the public. And it just, kind of creates an expectation for how we're going to operate in the meeting. A lot of times I hear people say, oh, we function really well. We don't need group agreement. What I found in my facilitation work is when you don't have group agreements is when you need them. So these are just some suggestions. You can come up with your own. You can decide not to have them, but here are some suggested group agreements that have worked for me over the years. Listen for understanding, as opposed to waiting for the person to stop talking so you can say what you want to say. Respect opinions beyond your own. Assume good intentions and ask curious questions. Participate actively. I guess you all are here because you want to do that. And share the air, so allow time for your fellow commitments. So again, these are just some ideas. You can use these. You can say, yeah, they sound good. You can say, well, we should adjust them. You can not use them. Just wanted to put it out there as a helpful tool. And as Adam said earlier, kind of set the tone and the culture for the commission's operation if you feel like this is something you want to use. Yeah, coming on. Well, if you like these, you can give them a thumbs up. You can work through your chair to agendize this at a future meeting and actually vote on it. It's really up to you all. Was that kind of what we intended? Yeah. So you're just introducing them today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't have a motion on the table or on the agenda to motion these agreements, but really it's a discussion to begin the conversation, and we'll work through the chair if there is, if that's something further that you would like to create an agenda item to motion it, or if there's something that you want to add that we could also do that, but we could also put that for a different agenda item, but we'll work through that, chair, which I believe you'll be deciding tonight, and your chair and your vice chair. Any other questions or comments at this point? Right, thank you.
Members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 4, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or bring your speaker slip up to the clerk during this time. You will be granted 2 minutes to speak. We will now move on to public comment in the regional operation room and then proceed to comment on Zoom. We have 2 speaker slips. When I call your name, you may come up to the podium. Trina Patton, followed by Nancy Goodman.
Hi, I'm Trina Patton from Belmont, and I would just like to make a suggestion, and that is this board is new to San Mateo County, but oversight boards are not new to California or in the United States as a whole. And I think it would be a good idea to maybe seek out some information about best practices for this type of board. Look at what other people are doing that they have found to be effective. I think the schedule that you've worked out is great, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. People are already doing this work. So I think it's a good idea to look and see what some of those good practices are. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Goodman?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nancy Goodman. Just to follow on what Trina Patton said, I would urge you to look at other counties and what they're doing. Don't just say what we're doing now in our county, because what I hear from the community is that what we're doing now in our county has some lack. For instance, the jail mail question. I would urge you to ask Santa Clara County or San Francisco County, they're close by, what they do with the mail, how they get the mail to people. With regard to the issue of suicides in the jail, I would ask you to bring the Behavioral Health Commission and ask them why they wanted and recommended to the board a 24-hour crisis stabilization facility where people could be brought in lieu of the jail, especially given the jail is incredibly understaffed and, they don't have enough staff. Couldn't we divert some people? And with regard to independent investigations, all the other counties that have oversight, which is what we were hoping that we would get, have a function called an inspector general or an auditor. So I would encourage you to look at what some of them do. Mike Giannocco is an auditor in Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz County, and John Alden is an inspector general in Sonoma County. How do they do an independent investigation? It's not one of these statewide groups, because the statewide groups aren't funded. They don't really do anything. We have no examples of the statewide groups actually investigating anything. So thank you so much, and thank you for all the work on that, downboard.
Thank you. Last call for public comment in the room. Okay, we will move on to public comment on Zoom. We have 2 raised hands. Let's begin with caller 562. When you're ready, please begin.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Just to the new commission, I'm a little confused. Is this an independent investigation, or is this a promotion for the programs, the curriculum that they want to implement? I'm not this is new to me, but I concur with Tina and Nancy. Obviously, they know the other systems. I'm new to this. And I hope that the board will ask questions. And I hope tonight that we hear from the new commissioners that they understand what their job is. So, yeah, I will leave it at this, and I will comment later. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat, when you're ready, please unmute.
I just want to second whatever the word is, agree with the commissioner who asked for more information about training. I have major concerns. I know that the sheriff has done work with the autistic spectrum community, but there are other, I guess I would use the word, disenfranchised members of the community. I don't think the sheriffs have adequate training to deal with other members of the community in those subsets. I also don't think the San Mateo County sheriffs have nearly enough training in de-escalation rather than escalation. So I hope those are topics that get examined in more detail when you're doing the training session as part of the onboarding process. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for public comment on Zoom. You have one last comment from Deborah. Please unmute when you're ready.
Hi, this is Deborah Leshin, and I just want to say a word in support of what Nancy, Trina, and the last speaker spoke of. Also, I'm interested in a non-armed response to mental health and drug addiction in our county. And I noticed that in September, the agenda states that there's something about a pilot programs that will be discussed. But I really think that there's that non-armed response to these mental health and behavioral health issues should be discussed. They relate to almost everything on those agendas. And I think that should be central. And also just to say, let's look at what other counties are doing. What is effective? Independence is effective. Being able to conduct an independent, fair investigation is effective. And there's a lot of commissions out there that are theoretically doing sheriff oversight where there really isn't sheriff oversight. And that is the concern, that this commission will not be empowered to do its actual job that the community needs. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one last hand raised on Zoom. Elsa Schaefer, please begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you. Once you say that, it takes a little bit for the unmute sign to show up. The only reason I pause. Thank you so much, Elsa Schaefer, Menlo Park. I think back to Don Horsley, who did so much in the mental health arena with the board, and of all the really helpful entities and programs this board has set up over time for mental health, and thinking of the Navigation Center as well. I hope that it feels to me as though it may take a long time for this commission to be, in a way, allowed to come forth with recommendations, which I hope is not true. I hope that's just my misunderstanding of hearing what's been said today. But I would love to have the Board of Supervisors take up things like, why do we have so many people who have mental health issues and who have drug overdose issues, having only the jail as their first port of call, and then too often ending up in an awful situation and dead. It feels to me as though the board has all the authority in the world right now and a lot of tools in its hands to be able to address deaths in the jail right now. And why is the jail the holding place for all of these issues? What can we in the county put together from our current assets, as well as from what we see could be more helpful than just slamming people into the jail who are in these very difficult situations that don't need a gun to solve? Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to item number 5, voter registration and election services process.
I got a loud voice. I mean, I can be louder if you need. Okay. Yeah, it is on. I just have to get it closer here. Good evening. My name is Jim Irizarry. I'm the Assistant Chief Elections Officer for San Mateo County. And on behalf of Mark Church, who is your Assessor, County Clerk Recorder, and Chief Elections Officer, thank you all for the opportunity to be here tonight to talk about some very important programs that we have for the upcoming election and in future years also, as we see the programs develop. First of all, I'd like to start with our presentation here, and if we can go to the next page. Today we'll be talking to you about the election model in San Mateo County, our voter education and outreach program, a little overview of our November 5th presidential general election, our San Mateo County inmate voting program, very exciting program that's on the horizon, subject to funding, and it won't be till next year, AB 544, voting in county jail, the pilot program, and then open it up to question and answer. I do have staff here that I'd like to quickly introduce that are really the backbone of our program, and will also be available to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to introduce Hillary O'Connor, our election supervisor, Efren Gorey, election specialist, and Ken Terry, who's also an election specialist. And they interface with our voter education and outreach citizen advisory groups, many similar to what this commission is about. It's appointed by Mr. Mark Church under the California Voters' Choice Act. There are 2 statutory committees that have to be appointed, and our staff here is staff liaison to those committees. And there's a lot of exciting programs that are going on there. We can go to the next page. let me give you a little overview of the election model in San Mateo County. First of all, we're very proud to be a leader in California elections. We were the first county in the state of California to conduct an all-mail ballot election with vote centers in 2015. From that successful initiative came the California Voters' Choice Act. And I remember very clearly at that point in time, your chief elections officer said at that point in time that this will change the way people will be voting in California in the future and for years to come. And today, as a result of the California Voters' Choice Act, we have well over 50%, 60% of the voters in the state of California participating under the California Voters' Choice Act. It is an optional act. Counties can elect to be members of the Voters' Choice Act community, and those that don't then basically administer their elections under the traditional polling place model. When we had a polling place model prior to 2016 and 18 was our first Voters' Choice Act election, we had 205 polling places, basically at the precinct level, and that was, again, a very somewhat, I should say awkward, but it was a very logistically intense election model. With the California Voters' Choice Act, we moved to an all-mail ballot model, which sent a ballot to every registered voter in the county, and then opened up 45, in this election we'll have 49 vote centers to provide voter services and in-person voting, very similar to polling places. So it's a melding of the two, and that's what the California Voters' Choice Act brings you. The Bible of the California Voters' Choice Act for local counties calls our Elections Administration Plan. You can find this on our website, and it specifically details all of the elements of elections in San Mateo County and how elections are administered. I invite you to look at that. It's updated every 4 years. We just updated it this year. So this plan is in effect from 2024 to 2028. And included in this plan is our voter education and outreach program, and of which the Sheriff's Inmate Voting Program is a critical component of that. And we'll cover that in a little bit. Again, it fundamentally transformed elections in the state of California, and we were very proud to be one of the first 5 counties in the state to volunteer and become a member of the Voters' Choice Act. And then go to the next. Our motto in elections in San Mateo County is more days and more ways to vote. That is exactly what this election model brings to every registered voter in San Mateo County. You can vote by mail. In our county, we start the process 29 days before Election Day. Every registered voter received their ballot in the mail, and we start mailing them 29 days before Election Day. So Election Day, while it is November 5th, 2024, really starts 29 days before in San Mateo County. We're also one of the few counties in the state of California that voluntarily opens up vote centers. We have 3 vote centers that we open up 30 days before Election Day. We have one in North County at the South San Francisco Library. We have one in Tower Road, 40 Tower Road, San Mateo, and we have one here at County Government Center at 555 County Government Center. They open 30 days before. We have 3 of them. And then as we get closer to Election Day, there are 10-day vote centers and 4-day vote centers. And the final analysis will have about 49 vote centers plus a couple of others that we put in the mix. And I'll cover those in just a little bit. Again, the election model allows voters to deposit their ballots into an official drop box. We have about 62 throughout the county. And another very creative program that was created here in San Mateo County was our accessible vote by mail system, where voters can actually vote at home by calling our office, and we provide them a link, and they can bring up their ballot on their computer, print it, mark it, print it, and then send it in the mail to us or drop it off. Next slide. In terms of our presidential election that's coming, we will have about 435,000 registered voters. We will have 49 vote centers, including 3 pop-up vote centers. We were also one of the first counties to do a mobile vote center, which travels from area to area, particularly in the rural areas where there are it's hard to basically go to a vote center. We set up a mobile vote center there. We have 62 ballot drop-off locations for this election where, again, anyone who casts a ballot can drop it off at one of our drop-offs. A key element when you look at the complexity of elections is how many ballot styles are in. And in this election, we will have 176 ballot styles. What's a ballot style? A ballot style is unique to each voter and where they live in San Mateo County. So a ballot style will be unique to your city, the school districts that are within the city or that impact or serve your home, special districts, and that ballot is unique to you. There are 176 different ballot styles in this election. We're one of the smallest counties in the state geographically, but yet we have 20 cities and 70 jurisdictions in San Mateo County that we serve. In total, there'll be 704 ballot styles in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Filipino. As I mentioned, we have vote accessible vote by mail. Those vote centers will house approximately up to 500 ballot marking tablets, and there will be 3 ADA accessible ballot marking tablets in each vote center for those who may need assistance in voting. Last election, we had last presidential general election, we had an 85% vote turnout, anticipating a similar amount. This election, who knows, quite possibly more. That was the 4th largest election in San Mateo County's history, and this one may very well escape. In terms of going on with our election overview, there are 177 qualified candidates in 34 jurisdictions. There's 10 state and federal jurisdictions that will be in this election. 62 local offices are up for races. There's 10 state and federal offices, 28 local measures, and 10 state propositions. The next slide. Let's talk about our voter education and outreach program, of which the Sheriff's Inmate Voting Program is a part of. The Voters' Choice Act, as I mentioned, requires that each county develop a comprehensive voter education and outreach program. And we have citizen advisory groups, the Voting Accessibility Advisory Group, the Language Accessibility Advisory Group, and our Voting Education and Outreach Committee. Those are very active committees that assist the Chief Elections Officer in developing programs to outreach to communities. And we have many that are award-winning and that are really the model for others to follow, particularly the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Before I move on there, one of the things that we do in San Mateo County under the VCA is we send postcard mailings to every registered voter. Statistics prove when you reach out and touch someone personally, postcards, our sample ballot and voter information pamphlet, people get engaged and become an informed voter in our election. Start mailing postcards out relatively soon. Within the next 30 to 40 days or so, we'll have some postcards that are going to every registered voter, and you will receive that. And of course, we have multicultural and traditional social media advertising and programs in all of the languages. We have 4 languages in San Mateo County that are required under the federal state laws, and that's English, Chinese, Filipino, and then I'm Spanish. Hablo español y se me olvidó. That happens. Okay. The Silicon Valley Community Foundation, an innovative program, very innovative program, that we have worked with the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, thanks to the recommendation of Mr. Church and the funding by the Board of Supervisors. We provide $150,000 to community-based organizations to perform targeted outreach to all members of our community, particularly those that are not engaged statistically in the program, where they have a 20% or less from the norm voter turnout in those particular precincts. But it also, focuses youth, language minorities, and voters with disabilities. If I can switch to the next. We're very proud of our Sheriff's Inmate Voting Program. In collaboration with the Sheriff over the past 20 years, this program has been around. one of the reasons that we were contacted by state legislatures and the League of California Women Voters to look at AB 544, because many of the programs or services that are provided under AB 544 are already provided in San Mateo County in our collaboration with the Sheriff's Office. Re-election, the Sheriff establishes a Sheriff Program Coordinator and a contact person. That person receives voter information packets, which include a ballot, sample ballot, and vote in jail information sheet. We also have registration cards, and that is all provided through the Sheriff's Program Coordinator. In terms of voting, again, we're a Voters' Choice Act county, so inmates vote by mail. They can return ballots to elections office through the Sheriff Coordinator, or by mail, must be received in our office by election day. And these are one of the forms we did hand them out that we have about our Sheriff's Inmate Voting Program that basically gives an outline to the public and to inmates regarding the program. Sign up to receive information as is not allowed, but basically facilitated through this form. Okay, let's talk a little bit about AB 544, which is a voting pilot program in county jail. I have to just qualify it that at this stage of the game, the program has been passed by the state assembly, the bill, and it is awaiting passage in the Senate and the governor's signature before it becomes law from a policy perspective. From a funding perspective, funding is not available until next year, and that too needs to go through the legislative process. So the state has to provide funds to the counties that are going to be participating in this program in next year's budget, and then the counties then will elect whether they want to participate or not. But the overview of the program is that the county elections official coordinates with the county sheriff to design and implement a program to establish in-person voting at each jail for eligible incarcerated persons. It also permits any eligible incarcerated person to register to vote, vote by mail, vote in person, and vote a provisional ballot, receive a replacement ballot, and receive voter education material. We can go to the next slide. The pilot program has both responsibilities for the election official and the sheriff. So let me just highlight those at this junction. The election official's responsibility is to administer and coordinate grants, to coordinate with the county sheriff in providing in-person voting accessible to eligible incarcerated persons, to design, implement, and evaluate programs to improve voter participation in jail facilities, expands in-person voting to eligible incarcerated persons, evaluates the program and reports the results to the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State then submits a report to the state legislature for each election that they'll recount. Next slide, please. County Sheriff's responsibility. The County Sheriff shall designate an employee as the voting coordinator in each facility in collaboration with the elections office, ensure compliance for in-person voting, maintain voter education materials in the jail library, post informational flyers regarding voting rights and eligibility to vote. Go to the next slide. AB 544 funding has been approved, as I mentioned, by the state assembly and awaiting passage in the Senate and the governor's signature. Goes into effect only if funding is allocated in the 25-6 state budget. Upon passage, approximately $900,000 in grant funds will be available to San Mateo, Santa Cruz, and San Benito counties. San Mateo County is estimated to receive approximately $400,000 grant funds, and they will be used at Wire Correctional Facility and Maple Street Correctional Center Facility. Next slide, please. And on that note, I will gladly attempt to answer any questions that you might have.
Approximately how many eligible voters do you anticipate then that would be in the program for inmate voting?
I don't have an answer to that, but I know in San Mateo County, there are 510,000 eligible voters, and we have approximately 435 that are registered voters. But the actual numbers of the eligible voters in the jails at this point in time, I do not have that. And it would fluctuate because there's a general population. We can find nothing.
And then the sheriff's going to give a little bit of a presentation on operations related to voting in the jail. And so maybe it's better to hold the questions until we hear that portion. And Jim, if you could stay,
okay,
because they may have questions that bounce to you, bounce to the sheriff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we conduct in collaboration with the elections office in regards to voting for our incarcerated population in both the facilities. So if you can go to the next slide, please. In California, voting rights for anyone that's incarcerated depends on their incarceration status. For instance, anyone in a federal or state prison is not allowed to vote. Individuals that are on parole, probation, or in the county jail on a misdemeanor or are awaiting trial that have not been convicted are eligible to vote. And then Proposition 17 was passed in 2020, and it restored voting rights for people that were on parole, allowing them to participate in elections after completing their sentence. So the way that it works is the elections office contacts our organization. We work with our classification unit, and we assign one individual to each jail to be the coordinator to ensure that we are following all the rules and that we are doing the outreach and are preparing for the election process. So information is posted at each housing unit that we have, and we are also pushing information out on tablets that the incarcerated population has. If you can go to the next slide. The next slide is, these are the same forms that Mr. Irizarry showed you in his presentation, but this is what we provide to our incarcerated population. So the registration process is that it's between, the program is the model that has been in effect for many, many years. And we work with our classification unit and with the elections office. And we first do outreach. We do information to let people know how they can register to vote. This past June, we registered 70 new people that were incarcerated to vote. And we formed some new partnerships for the upcoming election that I'll talk about a little bit later. But it's based on, a lot of times, our incarceration population changes based on the fluctuation. And so we really attempt to have people register to vote. And if they don't have a permanent address and their last known address was in San Mateo County, they can use one of our jail facilities addresses to register to vote as well. So once we do all of the outreach and the elections office, we register people, the elections office gives us their ballots. We provide them with their ballots, have them vote, and then our coordinators, our classification coordinators will then work with the elections office to ensure the safety and security of those ballots. And we provide those ballots to the elections office. So again, we provide the information in English, Spanish, Tagalog, and Chinese. We also, again, push it out on our electronic tablets that are afforded to the incarcerated population. Okay. So we, the way that we do it is we consolidate all of the information, the paper voting request onto a spreadsheet. We have weekly updates that we work in concert with the elections office. And then 3 weeks before the general public deadline is to ensure the delivery date. So we work specifically very hand in hand with the elections office to ensure really the safety and security of the elections process, and that nothing is compromised, and that we're following all the rules. Okay. So again, this is the voting process. The elections office determines the paperwork required for each incarcerated person. The Service League also assists us with delivering the paperwork that's necessary, and then our classification staff will collect all the completed ballots, and then we get them out either by mail or we deliver them with the elections office or to the elections office to ensure that they do get there and that they're not compromised. So as I said earlier, just this past June, we had 70 new registered voters that were incarcerated in our facility. So we also put information out for the process. If somebody wants to come in and need some outreach for elections, we ask that they send us the information, and we work with the elections office to ensure that the information is legal and that we're able to provide them. And it's basically, it's not saying to vote for one person or the other. We want to make sure that it's an unbiased process. They do have to go through our background process. And once they provide us with all of their paperwork, the pamphlets that they'll be providing us, and they're cleared, they can come in and do outreach. And then that's just a QR code that we provide for our jail request to come in for clearance. Yeah. So again, what we're looking forward to doing this election cycle, because we know how important this election is to enhance our communication, our outreach, encourage people to register to vote, let them know if they don't have an address, they can, their last known address was in San Mateo County, they can use one of our jail facility addresses wherever they're housed at, and really to try to improve the processes. So, for instance, in the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about some of the outreach that, of new relationships that we've formed for people to come in and do outreach and education on voting. The Women League of Voters, we are going to be working with them, and they're going to be going to our facilities. They will do English and Spanish presentations on how important it is to vote, who can vote, and how to vote. And then the San Francisco Peninsula People Power have reached out to us as well. And then we'll also be working with Casa Circulo, who will be coming in and helping out volunteering to provide both English and Spanish information about voting. So we're really going to push to try to get people to at least have the knowledge about how they can vote, and then try to encourage them to vote.
Yeah, and now thank you, Sheriff, for taking the time, and thank you, Mr. Irizarry, for taking the time, and staff to join us this evening. Now that you've presented, it's probably appropriate for everybody to go ahead and ask questions.
We're ready for questions.
Hello, Sheriff. Yep. You had mentioned that federal and state prisoners were exempted from this program. If they're in state, like if they're in the county jail for a state hold, would they still be eligible to vote, or would they be?
If they've already been, say, convicted and they're considered a state prisoner, then no, they will not, because if they're, so it's anyone that has a misdemeanor or somebody that has not been sentenced yet or hasn't been convicted of a crime, they're awaiting trial, they will be able to vote. But for instance, if we have somebody that should have gone to state prison and they're doing their time in our facility for a felony, then they would not be eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Sheriff. Thank you very much for that presentation. I do have one question, and that is, if the inmate family received the ballot at their house, and so that there is a ballot for the inmate, can they bring it in to the jail?
Yeah, I would have to defer that to Jen to see, because I think that's
If the registered voter does not live at that address, then it would be returned to us, and then we would make sure that we find out exactly where the registered voter is. We would send a letter. So as long as they're registered to vote, they have to reside at that address, and so that's the most important thing. So we would then make sure that if we get it back, then the family member would let us know, and we would work into our program, make sure that the registered voter gets the ballot. Also, if they are registered, we will reach out, make sure.
We could also include that in our presentation for the education part, to say that if you're already registered to vote, and then try to encourage them just to register within our facility, and we can work with the election documents on that.
So I just want to ask a clarifying question first. There's many iterations of a ballot. So which address do they use? Are they using the facility's address to determine the iteration of the ballot, or are they using their own address?
I'm going to defer that question.
Be careful. You got to use the one or this one. The white button right here. Up here, like on the white button. Oh, never mind. I don't listen to Jim.
It's going to depend on the individual incarcerated person. They can put the jail as their mailing address. The family member that brings the ballot in, that's also, home is where your heart is, and the election code actually almost kind of says that. It's basically your residence address is the place that you intend to go to, or someplace they can consider your home. So if the incarcerated person considers their house in Daly City their home and they're just temporarily residing, then they can get their ballot at their house and the family member can bring it in. That's fine. Most people want to vote where they live most of the time. So using their home residence is usually encouraged, and then just have the ballot mailed to the jail or have the family member bring it in.
And so the ballot is mail that's allowed to be delivered to them.
Yeah, we can work with the elections office on that. I just wanted to make sure that the rules facilitate what
is that happening now, because you had said that there was already like an established
environment. Yes, we have the sheriff's coordinator that we would work with to make sure that individual voter gets the ballot. Again, as Hillary said, the code basically looks at your domicile. So there is some discretion there as to where that person can select to vote.
And we hand deliver the ballot. So if they say I live in Daly City, that's my address, we'll hand deliver the ballot to the jail, but it will be the Daly City address.
My other question was about the law that's working its way through the legislation. And you said it was additional $400,000 to San Mateo County. Is that like a one time, or is it?
The program commences if it's funded.
If it's funded,
commences for the June 2026 presidential primary.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be 4 elections that are basically authorized under that bill, which would be both the 26th and the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Both primaries and general elections. The way the money is allocated right now, as we see the proposal in committee, is that San Mateo County would receive approximately $400,000 of that amount. Secretary of State will receive a portion, and then the other 2 counties, which is San Benito and Santa Cruz County, would receive their portion, and that $400,000 that would be put for the sheriff and also our elections operation to conduct this program.
And so because the program is already currently happening, what additional is going to happen with this money, or is it just going to replace money that's already being spent?
The money that's being spent at this juncture is in-kind contribution both by the sheriff and also the elections office. The money the primary difference in what we're doing and what the AB 544 proposes is in-person voting. In other words, to set up a vote center, kind of, it doesn't meet all of the prongs of a traditional vote center, in a county jail. And part of that would be to allow in-person voting for at least 8 hours during the election period. So that could be 8 hours in one day. It could be 8 hours over 2 days. And it could even be more than 8 hours too. But the thing is, 8 hours is the minimum threshold. And that's what the funds would be going for, is to make sure that they comply with that. The other element of the legislation is that there is a report that has to be written. There are statistics that need to be compiled, gathered, and pretty comprehensive when you read the legislation. And we need to report on that, and we will report it to the Secretary of State, who in turn will combine that information, that data that they get from the counties, and then submit that to the state legislature.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
So I heard that there were 70 new people that were registered, and so I'm wondering what the total number is. If you know what
that was just for the June election. So we
can get that data.
Yeah, but that was just for the June election.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
To put on the data parts, would it be possible to, in addition to the registered numbers of voters in the jail, to also get the number of how many inmates voted in the election after that?
Yeah, I think you'd be able to capture that. We'll look at the elections office on that.
We'll look at our data and see what we can extract. Yeah, I believe we can do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Sheriff and Mr. Arizari. We really appreciate your time and sharing this information.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
So I want to pose a question to the commission. We have a practice of not going past 9 o'clock because of our staff and their commitment to this. We have a presentation from the sheriff's office that would introduce a data portal that the sheriff maintains on their website and goes over some of the data that they collect. I think we would be giving short shrift to that presentation if we proceeded today. So I'd ask if the commission wanted to consider or would be okay with pushing that item to the next meeting, and then we could proceed with the election of your board chair.
Well, before we proceed with that election as well, we will have to do a public comments for the elections piece.
Mm-hmm.
We have 6 public comments.
To members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 5, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or bring a speaker slip up to the clerk during this time. We have 3 speaker slips. When I call your name, please come up to the podium. Betsy Colby, followed by Nancy Goodman.
Hello, I'm Betsy Colby. I live in Atherton, and I'm with the League of Women Voters. And first, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for creating this commission. And we've been supportive of this and glad to see it happening. And I thank you, commissioners, for being willing to serve on this and take your time to make this happen. This presentation has been very, very helpful. We, the League of Women Voters, that works to promote informed civic engagement. And we are part of the Thrive Alliance, the voter education and outreach that Jim referred to. And so we've been hearing about what's been going on, and it's nice to get some more details tonight. The Sheriff's Office has reached out to us, and we are actually planning to be in the Maple Street Correction Facility on September 7th to encourage the voter registration and education. So I'm looking forward to helping with that program.
Thank you, Nancy Goodman, followed by Diane Lee.
Yeah, Nancy Goodman, Redwood City. Thank you to the sheriff, the elections department, the League of Women Voters, People Power, VIOC, all the people working on this. I'm also concerned about just the low number of people that voted, because I think it was only 9 people voted in the March primary, according to elections. And maybe if 70 were, registered in June, that's about a 13% turnout, which is about half or a third of the rest of the county. So more people need to vote and more people need to be registered. I went to one of the VIOC meetings, it was a year ago. And at that time, someone from elections said there's about 80 people registered in our jail, which is about the same size as San Francisco, and there's about 600 registered in San Francisco, so we have a long way to go. One of the things that I would urge is the legal services for prisoners with children be included in this process, because they are the so-called trusted messengers, the people who have been incarcerated, and they can speak to the people who are already incarcerated and be listened to in a different way than I would. I go into a jail with some young Black man. Why would he want to do what I'm doing? I'm not someone that he's going to be trusted by. So I think we need to pay attention to who's going into the jail, and we need to support that. And we need to be way more robust. But thank you to everyone who's working on it.
Thank you. Last call for public comment in the room. Oh, yes, Diane, sorry.
Good evening. Again, my name is Diane Leeds, and I'm with San Francisco Peninsula People Power, and I'm also the co-chair of the county's Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Committee, and where we've been working to increase voter participation throughout the county, especially in those areas that have historically been underrepresented. And that includes our county jails, where, as you heard, the different numbers spoken about. But as we understand, back in November 2022, which is was another important election, only 28 people in the jail voted. And again, the number of people that are actually registered to vote, again, 70, 80, I know that number changes just as the population changes. So the question is, why do we have such low numbers? So first, we know from experience that people who are involved with the criminal justice system don't even know that they're eligible to vote. The fact that, yes, there's a lot of laws that have passed that say they can vote, but they haven't really internalized that, so they never register. And second, more important, is that we have to get people to understand why it is important to vote. They can register and never vote. So we need to get them to understand why every individual vote is critical, what the impact of voting has on their lives, the lives of their family and friends, and their community. We've learned from experience, as you heard from Nancy, that it's critical important to have trusted messengers deliver this message of why voting is important. And who's a trusted messenger? Yeah, not me. My only interaction with law enforcement is a traffic ticket. Again, I don't have the same experience. A trusted messenger has that shared life experience and can talk in a relatable way, where they are heard. Trusted messengers have the credentials that people like me do not. That's why we're asking that Jesse Burleson and others who have experience with the criminal justice system can make that important connection and be allowed in the jails to do voter outreach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last call for in-person public comment. Okay, we're moving on to Zoom public comments. We'll begin with Eric Stapp, followed by caller 562. Eric Stapp, you may begin when you're ready.
Good evening, Eric Stapp, staff attorney at Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, Redwood City resident. First, I'd like to correct a point of law about eligibility. In the sheriff's presentation and then again in Q&A, it was erroneously suggested that only persons sentenced for misdemeanors in jail are eligible to vote. In fact, persons convicted of felonies and sentenced to county jail to serve their terms pursuant to Penal Code 1170H are eligible. That was unambiguously clarified by AB 2466 in the year 2016. One would hope that it wouldn't take 7 or 8 years for the law to become clear among county officials, but apparently that is the case. And given that that's the case, even among county officials, you can imagine how difficult it is for someone who's in jail to know whether they're eligible to vote or not. And it's also why it's important to have accurate messaging about eligibility. Second point, I want to point out that AB 544 will be great in the year 2026, but that's not going to help people in the 2024 election who are denied, the equal access that person on the outside have. Now, someone on the outside can do conditional registration and same-day provisional voting. Someone in jail practically cannot do that. So nothing other than political will prevents the Board of Supervisors from taking actions similar to AB 544 just without the state grant money. They could take action today to ensure that people inside can do same-day conditional voting and cast provisional ballots to ensure that they're not disenfranchised in a de facto manner, even though they're legally eligible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caller 562, followed by Elsa. Caller 562, if you may begin when you're ready.
Great. Good evening. This is a great discussion, and once again, I ask this commission, what is your purview? Are you deciding on election rules and who is permitted to vote this year, or are you investigating the sheriff's department? I'm an American citizen, and it was always my understanding, once you're an American citizen and you go to the legal process, you can vote. But we have seen over and over that in California, they have manipulated the system, and they have not abided by these processes. So if the presenter wants to present what exactly is permitted in California, I would agree with that, but he has not presented it. So ask this presenter what is allowed in California. We have seen over and over, all these in healthcare and in education, they have violated our laws. They have manipulated to get voter registration. They have disrupted school districts. And I can go on and on. But my time is limited. But this is not. Tonight, you have to decide what your duty is, because it's not clear. And I can certify. I have worked with this sheriff. He's not abiding by the contract. And you should investigate what the contract is and what they have to supply. It's not about voter registration. They have to abide by the law, and they have not provided this. And I hope that this committee will investigate what the sheriff's department is supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Elsa Schaefer, please begin when you're ready.
Thanks. This takes a bit for the unmute to sign up, to show up. I would especially like to thank Sheriff Christina Corpus for starting the education and the beginning of this program right now, which I really know has not happened before in the jails. I'm the idea of this pilot coming along next year, and of it having state funding and being ready for 26 and then 28, the next presidential election, is fine and dandy, except we've got one in front of our noses in 3 months. So thank you so much, Sheriff Corpus, for doing something now about it. I laud the idea of doing it with the League of Women Voters, and I'm particularly grateful that you will be bringing education into the jails ahead of the actual voting, so that people can become engaged, but become civically engaged and educated about why their vote actually counts. And I do take to heart the point about trusted messengers. So to the degree that you can go in with people who will reflect as much of the population as is currently in the jail as possible, the more effective it will be. And I think one of the great graphs you have coming up to you is the graph showing in previous elections how many or few people voted, and then showing both this year how much stronger that is, and then in future years. I just can picture that growing and growing. So your objective is to outdo those of us who vote who are not incarcerated. And that will be a terrific triumph and a role model for all the rest of us to follow. So thank you again, Sheriff Corfus and the League of Women Voters.
Thank you. Last call for comment on Zoom. Okay, there are no more public comments.
And although we try to keep a very strict rule typically of not having responses to public comments or having a colloquy or question and answer, the Brown Act does allow for quick corrections or brief responses, and it appears Mr. Irizarry would like to take advantage of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, I would like to correct that. Same day, provisional and conditional voting is provided to the inmate population. So a person in California can vote provisionally and conditionally and provisionally all the way up through election day. So if you're not registered to vote before election day and you want to vote, we will provide you a conditional voter registration application and a provisional ballot. So you can vote that day. Make sure, and we have made sure, that is provided to the inmate population.
Thank you. And I sort of stepped onto public comment asking to push the data presentation, but with no objection, looking around, no objection, we'll do that and push that presentation to next meeting, and you can proceed with the item after that.
All right, so we're going to move into the election of the commission chair and vice chair. I'm going to briefly review the roles of the chair and vice chair. You saw this last meeting. If you could go to the next slide. I'm just going to give you a minute to look at this and remind yourself of the roles. Next slide, please. Some additional chair responsibilities, and we've talked about this. You've heard some of this from Connie. Next slide, please. And just a reminder, you also heard this from Connie, the roles of all commissioners. Do we have a next slide? No. Okay, you want to go back to the first slide of chair and vice chair. So the vote that we'll be taking today will be for the term ending June 30th, 2025. And this is to align with the terms that you have been appointed for, and also to recognize that for the first few months, you are just getting up to speed. So do you have something to say, Ellen? Oh, okay. Oh, I should move back. Thank you. So I want to open this time to discuss nominations. So if anyone would like to nominate someone else for chair or themselves for chair, we'd like to hear that now. And we'd like you especially to say why you are nominating someone else or why you're nominating yourself. So open to anyone from the commission.
Yes, I'd like to open. I'd like to nominate Bill McClure. His background, city attorney for City of Menlo Park, years of government service, and I think he be a good start. Thank you.
I was actually thinking of other people other than myself. And for example, I thought Kaleva, with your experience on the school board, participating in operating meetings, and your apparent knowledge and experience with a lot of the issues that are going to be before this commission. I thought you would be a good chair. So I would like to nominate her.
Can we second things?
So what?
I would like to decline because I think Kalema would be a better chair if she's willing to accept.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I will begin roll call vote. Marco Durazo? I apologize. Michael Durazo?
Yes.
Michael Fisher?
Yes.
Alexis Lewis? William McClure?
Yes.
Shirley Melnico? Kalima? Yes. Robert Solano?
Yes.
And James?
Yes.
Great. Congratulations. So now we'll discuss nominations for vice chair. Is anyone interested in nominating someone for vice chair? And if you could share why.
I would like to nominate Bill. And and the reason is he's got a very calm demeanor. I think he can bring leadership to us.
No, I'd be happy to work with you.
If there's any public comment, we can take it now.
Members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 7, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or bring a speaker slip up to the clerk during this time. You'll be granted 2 minutes to speak. We do not have public comment in the room. Last call. We do have one public. We do not have public comment on Zoom. We will now move on to the selection of vice chair.
We have a nomination. It's been accepted. We can take public comment for that as well, if there is any.
Okay, we will begin public comment in person. Oh, just a vote.
Let's just take public comment again, in case there's any public comment. Hopefully there isn't any.
Okay. We will now begin public comment. Please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. We do have one raised hand on Zoom. Caroline Botogan, do you wish to speak?
Great. Yes, thank you very much. This is not a democratic process.
You have not answered our questions. This is again asking this commission, what is your purview? Are you investigating the sheriff's department, or are you promoting the political policies that have been enforced for the last 10 years, ignoring the existing laws that are in place? It is my understanding.
So this doesn't actually relate to the agenda item, so you can mute the speaker.
No, it's not. Yes, it is.
Okay, beginning roll call. Marco Durazo,
Yes.
Michael Fisher,
Yes.
Bill McClure,
Yes.
Shirley Malico,
Yes.
Kalima Salahudi,
Yes.
Robert Solano,
Yes.
James Simmons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our last agenda item is Commissioner and Liaison announcements. Does anyone have any announcements?
Seeing none from the commissioners, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity for our care liaison, who I don't know that they've been introduced to the board. If you would like, you can come up and introduce yourself and make an announcement.
Great. So my name is Bruce Von Henneman. I've been involved in care for probably almost 2 years since it started. I find it a phenomenally interesting program. A lot of really open, transparent conversation, deep involvement from the sheriff and the staff. And I really enjoy it. And then I've been asked to participate as an alternate in this important committee. So thank you.
Stanley. One, two. Oh, there we go. My name is Stanley Roberts, and I'm also, as you know, a liaison. I've been with the care since I think I don't know, had it been 2 years? Wow, time flies. And I'm happy to be here. I'm just here trying to learn what's going on right now to get an idea. And in case you wonder if I look familiar, yeah, I am the guy from TV.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also a San Mateo resident since 1998. So my whole thing is to try to make sure that where I live at is safe and whatnot, and make sure things are being handled properly. So I'm here because I have a perspective because I work closely with law enforcement for my videos that I do, which are they used to be called People Behaving Badly, but now I run a nonprofit called Mr. Badly TV, where I still do this exact same thing, except for now we do it through donations and go out there and try to educate the public so they know the difference and why they could or could not get a ticket. So, and try to understand that there's a big misconception that all cops are bad. And my whole thing is to try to figure out what's really going on, look at everything, open a second set of eyes. So if you want to find me, I'm always here. And thank you very much.
Thank you all for commenting, and thank you for taking the time out of your lives to participate as liaisons for this. We really appreciate it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Then the time is now 9:01, and the meeting is now adjourned. Sign up to the jail tours, and the next meeting will be at September 4th at 6:30 at this room.